You know what I would say is probably the draw for people to the museum is the idea of someone creating, the likeness of a person. And, everyone wants to be a critic and a judge and find out, judge for themselves how a figure, if it's up to their standard. Plus, there's been a history of it. I mean, supposedly by history, some historians say that Alexander the Great would have a wax figure of himself made after every one of his victories. So it goes way back. They've even found wax figures in Egyptian tombs. And to this day, I think it's like, has the artist met the challenge to make the figure realistic, as well as is if the image looks like the actual person or not. Plus, there's the whole creepy factor, there's that whole house of wax thing, challenge in putting together a wax museum. It's one thing to have the realistic wax figure, but the way we like to do it is it has to be more than just a figure. You have to have a costume that is appropriate for the figure. If it's a historical person, you have to have the right historical outfit. So, sometimes as much money goes into building the costume as goes into creating the figure. And sometimes in cases like Cleopatra, her costume is actually more expensive than it costs to create the wax. And then on top of all that, you have realistic, good-looking wax figure that resembles the character, the costume that complements that artistic image, and then you need to have a set to put it in that also will complement, bring the whole thing together. In our case, we do a little bit more in the sense of a tableau. So Cleopatra has got to look good in her costume standing next to Marie Antoinette or Mata Hari and Lucretia Borgia. On the other hand, all our presidents have to look very presidential standing in the presidential library. It's all goes together and then on top of everything else, you have to have the lighting that will hopefully be dramatic or highlight what you want to accentuate. And if there's been anything that you don't like too much, throw that into the shadows, right? So all that comes together to create the magical experience of going to a wax museum, in my opinion. And I've been at this for 34 years now. I have to say that maybe I'm not as in touch with the public as I used to be when I used to play wax 30 years ago, but I think I have a pretty good idea of what people like, and hopefully, I'll still be here. I'm hoping that we'll have a few more interactive displays in the museum to commemorate not just 50 years, but to keep up with the 21st century. And that's the other thing about, just to go back for a bit about the allure of the museum, is that it's an ancient craft. When I talked about Alexander the Great and, the Egyptian pyramids and so on and so forth, it's something that's, believe it or not, only a handful of people in the world know how to actually do. And it's still being performed. And I think that is also, it's old school. It's not really, there's no real computers or digital aspect to it. It all has to be done by hand. And I think that also in the 21st century lends a bit of allure, or at least an attraction, a curiosity, as can he do it better than a machine does it? And in our case, I think we completely blow away the machines.